So I'd like to welcome you to the fourth and last talk of the 40th anniversary research talk series. In this series, we had already three talks, one about lucid dreaming, one about nightmares, and one about function of dreams. Today, we will hear something about dreams and culture, a very interesting topic. So a few brief words to Kelly Bulkeley. I looked him up in the internet, and he was very busy in the 1980s, came to the ISD community, was also past president in this community, and was very active in very many fields of dream research, especially dreams and religion, dreams and culture, dreams and politics, and dreams and literature. So he has a very vast knowledge about the topic you will hear now. And he's also the director of the Sleep and Dream database. And I think his intention is to bring dream research and understanding of dreams to a more greater general public. So he is interested that dream research is not only a academic small group, but also these findings should be diversified into or should be made available to the broader public. So, Kelly, please start your talk.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Good to see you all. I can be heard fine, I assume. Anybody can't hear me, let us know. It's the morning time here in Estacada, Oregon, on the Pacific, in the Pacific Northwest. It's a very stormy day. The power has been flickering. This building, I was telling Michael, was shaking about an hour ago from the wind. So I think it's a moment of pause. The heavens have obliged and given a little opportunity here. So fingers crossed, I can make through it here with this great opportunity. And I'm grateful to be part of this excellent celebration of the ASD's 40th anniversary. It's an honor. I'm glad to be part of a series that Michael and Kachavali and others have helped to organize, and I'm very grateful for that. So in my presentation today, I will share with you, I'm going to talk about a realm of violent instincts, cognitive bizarreness, egocentric fantasies, and bizarre, shocking immorality. And I'm going to talk about dreams. The study of society, culture, and dreaming, I think, is especially important today, precisely because the social world is increasingly, for many people, beginning to feel like a waking nightmare, like a realm of violent instincts and cognitive bizarreness, egocentric fantasies, and shocking immorality. And in this historical context, I believe that the dream research, and this will be the broad theme of my talk, is that dream research can provide a kind of social therapeutics, a way of helping broad communities of people, like Michael was saying, adapt to and respond to radical changes in collective realities. So my presentation, I'm going to talk about three different things. I'm going to start with a brief review of the last 40 years of research on dreams and social phenomena in society. Second, I'm going to talk about a theoretical model for understanding the intrinsic sociality of dreaming. And then third, I'm going to offer a kind of mythological vision of the future of dreaming in the contemporary social world. So part one will be dreaming as empirically social. Part two, dreaming as intrinsically social. Part three, I'll talk about dreaming as spiritually social. So now, before fully launching into that, let me welcome the contrary view into the conversation, the idea that dreaming is not social, that dreaming is indeed the antithesis of sociality. That idea goes back at least 2,600 years to the pre-Socratic philosopher Heraclitus, who in one of his fragmentary sayings observed that in waking, we share a common world, whereas when we go to sleep and dream, we each enter our own private world. So going back at least that far, 2,600 years ago, we have this idea that dreaming is at the far end of a spectrum of sociality, that dreaming is the opposite of sociality. And so let's think about that. What is the relationship? What is the dynamic between our dreaming experiences and our social lives, our social realities? And let's look at some evidence. Start by looking at some evidence. What's been done in the last 40 years. For us, I don't know how compelling for other people, but I think it's compelling evidence that 40 years ago, the Association for the Study of Dreams was founded on the premise that gathering together people from many different perspectives, many backgrounds, we can learn more about dreams. And so, over the years, we've talked about emphasizing now we're the IASD, and we want to emphasize the S, in the IASD, and of course the D. Here, I'm highlighting the A, the association, the community that we have voluntarily chosen to join. That, as I said, is founded on this premise of a community of dream researchers can go farther than solitary dream researchers. And here we are 40 years later, making it happen. So another realm in which I think over the last 40 years, we see a lot of evidence of the powerful interaction of dreaming and our social and cultural lives is the dream sharing practice developed both by Jeremy Taylor and Montague Ullman. And this is the beginning of my show and tell. I'm not doing a PowerPoint. I'm not trusting the heavens that far, but I want to show you some books today. So Jeremy Taylor and Montague Ullman, both leaders of the early ASD, both developed dream sharing group methods that explicitly draw upon the collective insight of the group. Same idea that you can learn more from a community of dreamers than just muddling along on one's own. And so that method, that sort of joint Taylor-Ullman method, provides a kind of social contract for contemporary dream work. And I think, again, the ASD has benefited and flourished because of that recognition of the power of social dynamics in our work with dreams. Another realm of over the last 40 years, I think we've seen powerful empirical evidence around the issue of dreaming and sociality. This would be the content analysis tradition. That's Bill Domhaus' 1996 book. The idea that from content analysis that there are continuities between our waking concerns and the contents of our dreams. And condensing a lot of research into a sentence or two, one of the strongest signals of meaning identified by content analysis involves our relationships, our social interactions with family, with friends, neighbors, coworkers, students, celebrities. Our social lives, according to content analysis, are very vibrant in the dream world, and they accurately map onto our primary emotional concerns and social relationships in the waking world. So that's a big realm of evidence in this discussion of sleep, dreams, and sociality. In a somewhat darker dimension, work by researchers, Ernest Hartman, another early leader of ASD, on the study of nightmares and trauma, and clinical work, therapeutic work with people who have suffered various kinds of social violence, sometimes from natural disasters or accidents, but many times the post-traumatic stress disorder nightmares people are suffering stem from social violence, from abuse, from crime, from war. And so our collective research on nightmares, on people who have been traumatized in their dream lives, this is kind of a dark mirror reflecting back social dynamics that sometimes we don't want to look at and recognize. And some of the therapists and clinicians who do work in this realm, and maybe some of you are here now, really do heroic work in drawing upon dreams and nightmares as testimony, not just to personal suffering, but to collective suffering, to social problems that are literally crying for attention. So that's been a powerful and growing realm of socially oriented dream research. And of course, there's a whole, I could talk for a long time about the realm of dreams in the study of anthropology. And sadly, the last just few months, really, we've lost two giants of, can you see her name? Yes. Of the anthropology of dreaming, Barbara Tedlock and Jeanette McGee, both passed away recently, but their works and their influence remain strong. And anthropologists, ethnographers, cross-cultural psychologists are helping us understand how dreaming is deeply interwoven in people's social lives, and that social and cultural beliefs, practices, and experiences feed back into dreaming in ways that are that call into question the primacy of psychology as the best way to understand what's happening with dreams. And it's Jeanette McGee passed away sooner than I think she wished she would have, in terms of her ambition to challenge dream psychology in exactly this way. There are other psychologists anthropologists worth mentioning. This is like I said, a very rich field. Roger Lohman, his work on dreams and sleep in the Western Pacific. Jedridge and Shaw book on dreams, religion, and society in Africa. Excellent collection. Amira Mittermeier's Dreams That Matter, a book from about dream interpretation practices in early 2000s Egypt. And then I'm not going to try to pronounce your name, Adrienne Heitinen, I believe. Wonderful World, The Social Life of Dreams. 1,000 Years of Dreaming in Iceland. This is really actually a brilliant book on this topic. I mean, looking at Icelandic culture almost as a natural experiment of a very I don't want to say homogenous, but continuous and consistent and well-preserved cultural tradition around dreaming and sleep. That, again, it's very hard to say where culture ends and psyche begins, and psyche begins and culture ends. So, so the whole anthropological realm is a profound source of insight about the role of dreaming in relation to society. So another realm I would just touch on here that I think helps us understand these dynamics is sleep science, and our growing understanding of sleep in relationship to health, and also sleep in relationship to various demographic variables, with the sad and troubling finding, at least at the moment, this is current research, I believe, that the lower one is in the socioeconomic hierarchy, the more likely you are to suffer insomnia, the less likely you are to get adequate sleep, and thus the more likely you are to suffer the various health, mental, and physical issues that go along with chronic sleep deprivation. So this body of research has grown in public awareness, and it's spawned a kind of a protest literature or an activism literature. Arianna Huffington's The Sleep Revolution, Tricia Hersey's book, Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto. These are people who are taking research that we know about, and many of us have known about for decades, and giving it a social activist point. And really calling into question, like, we know these things about sleep and its relations to health and human flourishing. And if we see these just tremendous disparities based on nothing other than socioeconomic differences, where one falls in the hierarchy of society, that's something we can do something about. So I think important area of research, and supporting again this idea of the dynamic interaction between dreaming and society. So turning to just straight up neuroscience, many texts I could show, but this is the McKay, Smith, and Stickgold, sleep and brain plasticity. And the basic finding from neuroscience, going all the way back to Asperinsky and Kleitman, but I think more precisely defined in the last 40 years, is the idea that our brains, insofar as they naturally generate the sleep cycle of REM and non-REM sleep, that REM sleep is strongly correlated, not identical with, but strongly correlated with the psychological experience of dreaming. And that basic finding, that strong connection, not identity, but strong connection between the natural hardwired REM sleep phenomenon and the experience of dreaming, suggests that literally we are a species of dreamers. We are all dreamers. This is at least latent within all of us. And this is validating a long-standing belief in many religious and spiritual traditions that dreaming is a source of spiritual unity, that it connects people at all ends of the social spectrum. And so, at least implicitly, we are a society, indeed a species of dreamers, and we have not yet raised that fully to consciousness. But as I said, I think neuroscience is helping us recognize, at least implicitly, a profound community, a profound sociality to our dreaming capacities. And just to sort of round out this run of reviewing empirical research, if we think of the REM cycle and the REM non-REM sleep cycle and what we know about its connections to dreaming in humans, well, what's to stop us from looking at other species who also have REM non-REM cycles and who also have many of the behavioral characteristics of dreaming that we associate with human dreaming? So this is a controversial topic. Not all researchers are on board with this, but I think that works like David Pena Guzman's are calling attention to what is the resistance to acknowledging that animals might dream? What is the resistance to acknowledging that the global community of dreamers might include more than one species? But I do believe that's where empirical research is pushing us, and it's something to consider. So that's I could say more about different studies. I'm sure I forgot things, and if there are things we'd like to talk about in the question, that's fine. I'm sorry if I forgot anybody who's out there who's doing work in this realm, but there's a lot going on. But I want to turn to a question of how we account for this, that is it anything more than correlational? Can we say that dreaming is intrinsically or innately or necessarily social? And so what I would, I'm not the only person who says yes to this. So what I'm going to offer is a theory I'd like to think is compatible with some other people who say things along these lines, one of which Sharon Slowinski takes a kind of neo-psychoanalytic approach to the innate sociality of dreaming. I also think my approach is very close to what Antti Revonsuo and Cacciavalli are doing with the social simulation theory of dreaming, which I date back to kind of the original Behavioral and Brain Sciences edition from 2000, when Antti Revonsuo wrote a reinterpretation of dreams, an evolutionary perspective, something along those lines. And so with those ideas kind of as I think friendly kindred spirits in this, my approach is to look at dreaming as a kind of play, the play of the imagination in sleep. And this helps understand ultimately many things, but the sociality, the intrinsic sociality of dreaming in particular. And just briefly, play is a behavior found in many animal species. It's especially prominent at the early stages of development among juveniles. Researchers generally attribute several functions to play, such as rehearsing survival-related behaviors, expending surplus energy, exploring curious and novel types of phenomena, social bonding, and preparing for both dangers and opportunities that one might find in life. And not all play is happy and fun and positive. That's something to keep in mind. That in this sort of zoological comparative animal research approach, actually the most common form of play is play fighting, sort of expressions of aggression and violence and dealing with those kinds of issues. So play can get into existential issues around aggression, death, loss. These are not absent from play. And so by thinking of dreaming in this way, now I can't totally defend this idea of dreaming as play here, but I want to offer just a couple of sources of evidence for why this helps us understand theoretically the intrinsic, or I would say necessary, sociality of dreaming. And one goes to this realm of animal research, and here a work Patrick McNamara and colleagues, The Evolution of Sleep. When we looked closely at research, and this is kind of David Peña Guzman's work as well, if we look at different animal species and their sleep behaviors and other adaptive behaviors they have for survival and procreating and such, there seems to be a kind of a complex around species who play, who also are very social, and who have what's referred to as precocial birth, which means relatively immature birth, and lots of REM sleep. So these qualities of animal behavior and functioning seem to go together, and it's still correlational, and there's a lot of research on this that could be cited going in different directions, but I believe this starts to bring together within an evolutionary framework a way of seeing the adaptive interactions between these kinds of behaviors that we see in humans as well, and we see in other animals. High degree of sociality. The precocial birth is like human babies when they're first born, they're useless. They can't do anything for a couple of years, right? A horse is born, and very quickly it's up and running around, right? That's an altricial birth. So species that are very social, that have immature birth, that requires lots of parental investment, lots of social handling and connection very early on, that goes along with play behaviors, and it goes along apparently with a sleep architecture that is relatively dense in REM sleep. So this is all a way of saying that I think that this connection of dreaming and play and sociality and animal behavior as well, I think goes very deep and is a source of support for this idea. In a different register, I would cite British psychoanalyst, I don't know if you can see that, there we go. D.W. Winnicott wrote many works. Playing in Reality is one of my favorites, and his idea of a developmental trajectory in human life, beginning in infancy and leading into adulthood, that begins with dreaming and involves following up with dreaming, play, parallel play, shared play. These are each sort of developmental capacities that are achieved, and then ultimately into adulthood, the play of culture, the play of art, and of religion, and of politics, and of science even. And so for Winnicott, these are all transitional phenomena. That's how he refers to it. Transitional in the sense of being a kind of a liminal space between inner reality and outer reality, a kind of shared, we know it's not real, but it's not real either. right? That's like a play bite when animals are play fighting. It's not a bite, but it's not a bite either, right? So there's this kind of liminal transitional quality to these kinds of phenomena that Winnicott identifies, that I believe it not only applies to dreaming. I think everything Winnicott says about transitional phenomena is very helpful in understanding dreaming. It also, topic of this conversation, helps us understand how dreaming connects to these other realms of play, these other realms of culture, and how in this way of thinking, dreaming and sociality are not sort of accidentally related to each other, but that our cultural life is a direct outflow and outgrowth of dreaming itself and of play itself. So that's one way of thinking about why dreaming is not just, like I said, accidentally social, but has some intrinsic or innately social quality to it. So in an evolutionary framework, I think is helpful with that. It still doesn't really, it doesn't help us today. It doesn't help us figure out what to do today. And maybe this isn't a research question anymore, but it's a question I think we all as humans naturally ask. What do we do? I mean, the world's in a tough place, and so is there any sense in which the sociality of dreaming has relevance to the kinds of questions that we have about apocalyptic threats and dire catastrophes looming on all sides? This will open up many things, and we can hopefully talk about it, but I'm going to end in a way by going back to the future, and I want to talk about how some ideas of Sigmund Freud can be potentially helpful here, helpful in understanding how we as dreamers and dream researchers can respond constructively to the challenges that are facing us all today. So I'm going to bring up Sigmund Freud. His work originally published in 1900. The Interpretation of Dreams, sort of the founding of modern psychology of dreaming. As many of you know, in this book, he presented one of his two famous models of the mind. And in the Interpretation of Dreams, he presents what we usually refer to as the topographical model of consciousness, preconscious, and the unconscious. Later in his career, he developed another model of the mind, so-called structural model, that involves the ego, the id, and the superego, which not the same as the conscious, unconscious, and preconscious. So in Freud's career, he used both of those models of the mind to explain different phenomena and help us understand different things he was trying to understand. Not as many people know that towards the end of his life, Freud developed a third model of the mind, a third way of accounting for the most fundamental forces impacting our lives. And to do this, he had to stretch beyond the scientific into the mythic. And for this, I'm grateful for this work. Let's see if you get the right. Freud and Philosophy: An Essay and Interpretation by French philosopher, continental philosopher Paul Ricoeur. Helped me think this through. And Ricoeur picks this third model of the mind up in Freud's work Beyond the Pleasure Principle, and in some of the later cultural works, Civilization, Its Discontents, and such. And in this way of looking at the most fundamental forces that impact our lives, Freud identified another triumvirate of mythic figures, virtually. One being Ananke, or fate, necessity, natural law. We are bound by Ananke, Freud says. We are also bound by Thanatos, by death, by destruction, by a yearning, a deep primal yearning for stasis, for the inorganic. And thirdly, we are driven and bounded in many ways by eros, by the energy and drive of love, of life, and ultimately of the building of society and civilization. And Freud, in his later years, was his best effort at accounting for the forces that ultimately shape our lives. And he thought of these three as cosmic, as the ultimate forces, and he makes snarky remarks about the lullabies that religion try to tell us about these cosmic giants of implacable force. He also, though, he will at the same time emphasize that these are all within us as well. That, and particularly, this is the tough one, Thanatos is within each of us, that we have our own death instinct, our own drive to destruction. Freud, writing in the 1930s in Europe, I think he had a sense of that. We today may have a sense of that too. We may be living under the aspect of Thanatos right now. It sort of feels like it in many ways. And yet there's also Eros, which the force of, as I said, life and love. So I would, thinking in those terms, and this, I'm going to bring this to a close and then see if we have some questions. I would propose that the playful energies of dreaming are the energies of Eros. And I might cite, if we really were going to go into it, the increased blood flow to various parts of the body during REM sleep as maybe a physiological correlate to the energies of Eros in dreaming, the definitive energies of Eros. And that when we share dreams, we are engaging in a process of love and life and creating civilization. And that this ultimately is our best response to the social challenges of our time, which is simply to wave the banner of Eros and affirm life and love and civilization. And in sharing dreams, we don't, and in this way of thinking things, we may oppose Thanatos, we may defy Ananke. We're not defeating them, but I think the idea is that we are playing with them, and that as the energies of Eros pulse through our dreams and as we share dreams, we're not just engaged in a social process, which we're also engaged in a process of renewing and revitalizing and recreating the social world itself. So let me leave it there and see what you think. Thank you.